Hello and welcome to our game. Thanks for tuning in with us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. I'll start off the show by saying they said it couldn't happen. They said it wouldn't happen, but it's happened. The lovely silhouette that you saw in the image for the show can mean only one thing, and that is the return of the Saint. Bring that man up on screen. Shano, what's the story?
We're back, Bernie. They can only keep us apart for so long.
I never thought I'd say it, but it's great to have you back. I never thought I'd say it.
It's great to be back as well. Sure, look, Tipp got a win. Of course I was going to come trundling in.
Nearly 750 days since your last Munster Championship win. And we actually didn't plan it for the day after the under-20, but it couldn't have worked. It literally couldn't have worked out any better.
Geez, a lot of people are upset with the under-20 last night. And probably rightly so as well. Like the black card, I'm still not sure what that was about for Jamie Moylan, and Tipperary got a penalty as well. A few minutes before it as well, Clare got a penalty. There was two penalties in the space of a few minutes. Not sure what either is for. Not sure why. I mean, I don't want to go hard on the referee because in every match you've got 30 players all trying to basically cheat, and you're going to get a few things wrong, and it was costly. But I still feel like the team with the higher ceiling won, even though Clare probably played better for more of the match. Like, Tipp didn't take their chance in the first half when the goals were on. And then the second half, Clare took over and they had a chance to win. And do you know what the crucial moment for me was? If you leave out the penalties and stuff like that and the black card, which was very costly. But there was a moment when Clare could have gone 5 ahead late on. Jack O'Neill, who'd been really good and is a really good prospect, he put one wide that he'd normally put over in his sleep. And it just gave Tipp a little bit of a sniff. And from then on, it was the Oisin O'Donoghue show in many ways. Yeah, Clare pretty upset with it.
We need to just stall the ball here for a second because it's gas. When people see you every week, they're like, "Oh, Stapleton. Who needs Stapleton? Bernie's the star of the show." And week after week, it's like, "Where's Stapleton? Where's Stapleton?" And then we have this unbelievable loving coming in the comment section. We might bring up some of the comments like, "The king is back." This man's head is absolutely monstrous already. The last thing he needs is to be hearing any of this sort of stuff. But by all accounts, you're very, very welcome back, all the Our Game fans. Every week I get the question, what's Shane's story? What's the story with Shane? When's he going to be back? And they all predicted the whole way through that all it would take was a big Tipp win. And now we're on the back of a big Tipp win, a big win last night. And now, like, what a game to look forward to on Sunday.
Unbelievable. Like, I don't know. I mean, you just hope that, like, do you know what? Just before we get on to Tipp, there's still a chance for Clare here. Like, there really is. Like, the bookies are saying that Tipperary are going to beat Waterford. I'm not saying it just yet, but the bookies are saying it. Cork and Limerick sell out in the Gaelic grounds, as we now know. If Cork won that game, would anyone be shocked? Not really. And they're saying they wouldn't be shocked with Limerick winning either. So if those two things happen, then Clare, and I know score difference come into it, could find themselves knocking out Limerick, assuming Cork beat Waterford in the last game, which most people would probably think. So Clare are still alive here. And Tipperary couldn't have picked, like if Tipperary were told, you sit down and pick the Clare team there that you're going to face in the Munster Championship in Ennis, that's probably the team you would have done. You would have pulled out the 3, you would have pulled out the 6, you would have had Davy Fitzgerald out of the team. And he's been unbelievable for years, but he looked really off colour when he came on. So I think things kind of fell for Tipperary in that sense, but you still have to be good enough to make it count. And like last year at the end of the championship, after losing the last 2 games by a combined 33 points, the second and third last, Tipp were on their ear and, huge pressure. But like, you got to say massive credit to Liam Cahill and his management team and the players as well, what they've done. The change, like, we're in a great position to beat Limerick. Obviously, Limerick could have won it for a finish as well. Did not give up, despite going down a man against the Cork team. The last team you'd want to go a man down. And like with 5 minutes to go, there was only like maybe 7 or 8 points in it. Tipperary kept going. And obviously they were picked off at the end. But it's not like losing a man with 20 minutes to go and all of a sudden you lose by 15 points. They played for 70 minutes. And it's still a heavy enough defeat and whatever. But like, this team is going all the way to the well every single day. Clare came back from miles behind, as they'd done against Limerick as well.
That's
Tipp found a way to resist it.
That's a different tune than you had after the league final.
Yeah, it is, because the league final was kind of like the same old pattern again, opened up for goals. Oh, Christ almighty. And that game was dead early. But like, there's a bit more of an edge to this Tipperary team now. Something that I noticed in Ennis the other day was that if somebody took on a man, there was always someone extra filtering in behind to try to close up the gap, which was once or twice Ronan Maher. You saw he fouled Peter Duggan at the very start of the game after Shane Meehan had fed him the ball. A little bit later on, actually Meehan again, he was in the corner and he might have turned Michael Breen, and he got a chest bump from Ronan Maher as well, which is a hard chest bump. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, that's what you got to do. Man can go through, ball can go through, but the two shall not go through together. And, you know, like with all the commentary that I've heard all week, I don't think I've heard Craig Morgan's name mentioned that much. What a performance. What an exhibition he gave at centre-back. And it's not that Dave, and I mean, you're centre-back because you're marking David Reedy, and a lot of time he was centre-forward, from what I could see. But what an exhibition he gave. And, like, you know, he hasn't always had brilliant days for Tipperary, but I thought he stepped up big time. And obviously John McGrath. But, yeah, it was like, it was just an edge, a sort of not back down sort of performance. Clare weren't themselves and still nearly won it. But for Tipp, you don't care how it comes. You just need the result.
Yeah, it's funny, like, you're obviously a serial sneer, as I am to it, maybe a bit of a lesser extent. But it's a gas, like, you really sometimes have to get either go all in or you keep your powder dry. Look at the difference that 10 months makes. Tipp at the bottom of Munster, humiliated. Clare go on to be All-Ireland champions, and you're obviously great rivals, so there's a pure sneer fest between you. And look at it 10 months later, Clare in serious bother, and Tipp have potentially a couple of toes in a Munster final, and they'll have a foot and a hand in a Munster final. Isn't it amazing, like, the way it turns?
It is, but like, quite easily we could be looking back next week, or, you know, after next weekend, saying, geez, Waterford are after knocking Tipperary out of the championship, because... And, like, it's so difficult to read the form lines, because first weekend, obviously 2 draws. And then the next weekend, Waterford go out and beat Clare. And you could say, well, are Clare a little bit tired after last week? Plus, they don't have some of their main men, Tony Kelly, Shane O'Donnell, John Conlon, John Conlon.
McCarthy.
Yeah, and now this happens as well. And still, Clare nearly got a result against Tipperary. Because if they get out of Munster, maybe they get Diarmuid Ryan back, and maybe they'll have them for the Limerick game. You just don't know. Obviously, it's not looking like they're going to have it.
It's hard to see it. Now, I mean, it's just hard to see it just from even Clare getting the result with the way things are at the minute. And even, what did you make of McCarthy's statement? Short but brief, but fairly to the point. Just clarifying the fact that he didn't walk and that he was available for selection. He was available to play against Tipp if selected.
I mean, the issue here is that Brian Lohan wasn't asked about it before the match. Well, it was actually Brendan Bugler who did the GA Plus interview. But that the management weren't asked before or after, so you've got the information vacuum, which probably, you know, McCarthy's ear is probably burning down there, and he probably eventually felt like, I need to say something here, and he did. I don't know if it's good for him, I don't know if it's good for Clare, but either way, he's done it. But
what would you do, or what would you have advised him to do? It's a difficult one, because there's potentially burning bridges, there's potentially really peeing off your teammates, and, you know, building a mole that's a hill that's very difficult to get back over. But then there's also, like, God only knows what you're hearing down around Ina and Kilnamona about what you are and what you're after doing and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, well, you know, scorched earth policy is favoured around here. So I don't know, maybe I'd have done something similar to Aidan McCarthy myself. I certainly wouldn't be recommending it. It's one of those things you might do yourself when you're, you know, in the middle of that firestorm. But you'd obviously advise, you know, anyone else, just say nothing, just keep your counsel. Maybe you'll patch things up down the line. But he's a huge loss. And even if he wasn't playing as well as we know he can do, I mean, go back to last year, league final, very, very important. Obviously, All-Ireland as well, scores a goal. Like, he's one of the key forwards that you have. So, but, like, that Clare defence really was all over the place. And
hey, come here, quick one for you. Should Lohan have bit the bullet and put a +1 or a +2 or a +3 or a +5 to stem the tide, because they were opened up so badly? Do you remember when Clare played Galway in 18 in the semi-final in Croke Park, and they literally, I think they dropped everybody behind the ball, and
Colin Galvin going back was the big one.
Yeah, and it just stopped everything for a couple of minutes, got them into the game, and all of a sudden they got their shape back or whatever. I don't know, was there a bit of pride in that or criticism of Davy in his time as Clare manager that about playing the sweeper and not liking his style? But they left themselves wide open. It could have been 8 goals realistically.
But you know what the key was? Like Reece Shelley. And
Yeah.
look, Barry Hogan's a very good goalie. And, you know, I would have always said that. But you know that, and like we've chatted privately and stuff like that, you know for the last few years that I've said Reece Shelley is unbelievable and just needs to play. And the reason is he'll try and put the ball through the eye of the needle. And he's also got unbelievable range with his puck out. So Wind assisted in the first half, he was dropping the ball inside the D and it's coming with momentum. And that led to one of the goals where Conor Lean, who, you know, clearly he's not right. You know, we were writing songs about him last year, but he had a really, really difficult day. And Jason Ford picked up the ball, spun him, and, you know, popped it in for Ormond to score. But Reece Shelley has no problem. Like, you know, if you think of, he hasn't played a championship game for probably a couple of years. I don't think he played at all last year in the championship. But he's got flares going off behind him. Probably can't really see as Mark Rogers is taking that early free, then gets puck out. And I'm looking at the head on him. And I don't know the guy, and I've never spoken to him in my life, but I'm looking at him thinking, there is not a bother on this lad here. Mm-hmm. He doesn't, and he just throws up the ball and just pops it. And no problem. And there could be a player within 10 yards of whoever he's pucking it to, Brian O'Mara or whatever, and he's just like, pop, and then hand pass, and then Tipperary are up the field. So I don't think it matters. I don't think it would have mattered whether Clare played a sweeper or not, because they're against the goalkeeper who was going to take what the opposition was offering them. And I just think he's like the quintessential modern goalkeeper. He may make a mistake at some stage. And at the start of the league, I think it was Galway and the wind and all that kind of stuff, which is not related to summer hurling. And he made a mistake or two. And that can happen any goalie. But you nearly have to price that in. Right, we might concede a goal, we might get a mistake, we might get whatever. But we know he is going to run the opposition ragged with his puck outs. And there's going to be maybe 35 puck outs in a game. So every second minute, we're going to get an opportunity to punish the opposition or drag them out of shape or whatever it might be. And the goalkeeper who's got that range. And again, Barry Hogan's very good goalie, don't get me wrong. But it's just I've always kind of felt that Reece Shelley is just built for this.
Yeah, he's a fair set of cojones on him. And you need to have him because that is high-end stuff. Like that is like it's like walking a tightrope. It's so the margins are so fine. I remember Brendan Cummins saying about before, like about how small lads look from that far, and just how difficult it is to actually put into those areas. But you're right. It's almost like football earlier on in the year where teams are playing the fly keeper, and is it worth risk or reward? And like if you think you could be lobbed, then you could concede a goal, and it could be something soft. But is it worth what you're going to get going forward? And is it worth what he offers to them offensively? I would tend to agree with you, to be honest with you. Because at the end of the day, they don't have a heap of ball with, like real natural 6'2", 6'3" ball winners. So they have to play it a different way. What's going to be fascinating on Sunday is what sort of latitude he's allowed, whether... I'll be straight with you. I think Waterford are a team that have had your number in general in the last few years. Yeah, yes, and that's the big one. And I don't think the 8-day turnaround can be underestimated. And I don't think...
do Waterford have the same athletic advantage that they used to have maybe 3 years ago?
Probably not to that same level, but I still think there's a fair advantage there.
But have they not dropped off athletically? I mean, in terms of the amount of players that are absolute flyers. I'm thinking, I haven't seen... Maybe he's injured, but Neil Montgomery type, you know.
He's away. No, he's not involved, Jay. He's away for the year, yeah. Peter Hogan, those type of players that you're thinking of.
Caleb Lyons, you know, they don't have the same lads who will just burn up the ground and run straight through you. Not as many. And then Tipperary have come up a little bit, I would have said. So I don't think that's going to be as pronounced. And what I'd ask you is, do you think Waterford will play a sweeper against Tipperary and allow Tipp to have a +1?
I think potentially in the first maybe 15, 20 minutes they might. And just to make sure that they're not opened up, even though I wouldn't really have that fear of them been opened up by Tipp, to be honest with you. I think they match up quite well. I would be worried about, genuinely now, I would be worried about Ford's ability to make an impact a week on. John McGrath's ability to make the same impact. Probably Noel McGrath's ability the same as well, just to front up. And I know it's not 6 days and it's 8, But I think that is huge going down the stretch. I think that's massive. I was down in Walsh Park for Waterford and Limerick, and I thought that beforehand that the 6-day turnaround was going to catch them. And you could see even from the very start, the same enthusiasm wasn't there. You were talking about that extra run that the defender was making, the covering defender. Will the covering defender, and that's just will, and having it in your head and in your body that you're able to get there. I don't know if that will be the same on Sunday, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like for some teams, it's fallen nicely that maybe once you might have to play 2 games in 7 days. Other teams have had it spaced out not quite so well. And I would say Tipp haven't had it spaced out quite so well, because 2 times in the championship, you're playing 2 weekends in a row. Other teams are not doing that. It definitely makes a difference. And you're explaining it there very well. So, like, that is something that Tipp are going to have to overcome.
Just a quick one, Shane, really though. The crack on the line, right? So like the crack on the line is going to be so tasty. Like Cahill left under a massive cloud, obviously, and there was that Thurles League game where, to me anyway, it seemed that Stephen Bennett was targeted big time. Do you remember that? And there was wagging fingers, and we were doing it, and all this kind of crack. So there's the Cahill factor there, that he wants to get one over on these boys from a certain cohort. Listen, probably all of the Waterford players, they want to get one over on him. That's not to say that they all have a beef with him. They don't. But I remember even when I went to Brendan's in Burr, like for the longest school stint.
You mentioned before, yeah.
The longest school stint that anyone can imagine. When I was teaching in Banner, who did I want to beat more than any other school when we played them? It was them. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, when you have a manager that manages you, you want to beat him. When you have players that you manage, you want to beat them. It's almost to prove some sort of weird point in your head. Then there's Big Dan, and I love Dan, but Dan would definitely have something in his craw about Morris being dropped by Cal those years ago as well. And like, it all comes out on the line on match day. Owen Kelly's involved with Waterford. Like, what more do you want? Like, absolute fireworks here.
Yeah, and Liam Cahill isn't going to back down on the sideline. I think one of the flags on the sideline got a fair old going over during the match. But like, it's going to be raw on the sideline, which adds a lot to it as well. And I can't wait to see what size of a crowd turns up in Thurles. Like, it's going to be an awful lot better than it has been. And like, this Tipperary team, I mean, some of the players do know what it's like to win All-Ireland, Ronan Maher and maybe Jake Morris and a couple more. But like, a lot of those players haven't really had a full house in Thurles.
Yeah.
And, you know, like...
And it had a full house in Thurles, sorry. It just wasn't a full house of Tipperary people.
Yeah. No, fair point. And you caught me, you've chinned me nicely there. But they haven't felt like 30, you know, and I'm sort of hoping maybe 30,000 plus Tipperary supporters behind them. Because even since the last All-Ireland, you've had the COVID nonsense for a couple of years. And, you know, things... Then obviously Tipperary kind of hit the skids a nice bit, and just I wonder how often those Tipperary players have actually had a majority in the stands, you know, coming up to a big championship game. And I'm really hopeful that this is that game. And I can't wait to see, you know, what way are the matchups going to line up. You know, you and me, this is manna from heaven now. Like, Mark Fitzgerald is going to pick who. Is he going to go after Jake Morris? If Waterford don't play a sweeper, will Andrew Ormond try to go in on Tig de Burka and maybe run him around a bit, or will Jake Morris? Like, there's a lot of matchups that are really, really tasty.
Yeah, when I go through the majority of them, the scales is probably tipped in Waterford's favour, and I do think potentially that they have your number. What did they put on you in 2021? Was it 428?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and even 2 years ago in Thurles, which was a big game for you, was to qualify for a Munster final. It was a Nottingham game for them, and you know, you played the week before against Limerick, but they ran you ragged. They were up by 4 in injury time last year. I do think that they have your number. I think the quick turnaround will affect you. I think the 2 weeks will help them, and they also have another game to come as well. So this isn't necessarily their last ditch scenario. And now that probably tips it back in your favour a small bit, as in, this is the game of games for you. This is all that's left for you. Crack of the Ash just says Tipp Waterford is nearly a bigger game than Limerick Cork. I would agree, because I think Limerick and Cork is going to be deadly. But this is the first of definitely 2, I'd say, and possibly 3. And it's juicy. But just call it. Like, I presume, you're calling the Premier, I assume, are you?
Well, I can't not. I can't not. But like, the thing that I'm interested to see is a starting team for Tipperary, because Sam O'Farrell went off with a knock, but he was able to come on. And he, like, whatever about, decisions from referees and stuff like that. But his introduction from the bench last night is the main reason that Tipperary got over the line. If you were to talk about non-refereeing decisions, his calmness was just. Oisin O'Donoghue was brilliant as well, but Sam O'Farrell came on, and all of a sudden, have you ever seen a player come on and all of a sudden they start to dictate how a team is playing, or they bring a calmness to it? He did that. So is he going to be right to play? If he came on for 15 minutes, you would assume he's okay to go. Is Alan Tynan going to be okay to go? Now, like a lot of people slate him, as in privately slate him to me or whatever, but I'm like, here's a lad who goes in and smashes people throughout the game.
Dog of war.
What do you love in your team? You want to see a team that's nasty, that's full of men that are putting hits in. And sometimes he hits the odd wide or whatever. But even his hand pass and solo set up that first goal. And geez, what were Clare doing with their defending? It was like they were 5 to 10 yards after men all the time. And John McGrath, obviously, cleverest hurler in the pitch, not the quickest, of course, but always leaves on time and got some great finishes there. I'm interested to see if Noel McGrath starts. His performance off the bench against Cork was brilliant. Good when he came on against Limerick. Yeah, good when he came on against Cork. But I would say the pace of the game over the 70 minutes, and he didn't last the 70 minutes, didn't suit him. And I would have said, depending on whether those lads are fully right that I've just mentioned, Conor Stakelum, he got 45 minutes into his leg. He had a broken leg not so long ago, has had a lot of injuries.
Did you see him, the training he was doing to get back in that kind of that treadmill where you're not putting any pressure? It's class to see it.
Yeah. But he is so important, and he's a player that's not really talked about. And let's hope that he can get maybe 55 minutes, into the legs this time. And then if Tipperary in the last 20 minutes could bring on Willie, and the way Cork last 20 minutes, they'll bring on a load of speedsters and try and run you off the road. What Tipperary can do is not bring on a load of speedsters. Tip don't have speedsters to start in most positions. But what Tip can do is bring on lads who will. Thomas Muller, Bayern Munich in Germany, space invaders, lads who will get around, be safe on the ball, pick your pocket. So if you brought on, let's say, Noel McGrath, Willie Connors, maybe even Jason Ford, let's say they decide, okay, Ford, it didn't work for me from the start, the last day, and also playing that amount and being maybe 30 or whatever, we'll start Oisin O'Donoghue and Darren McCarthy, and he didn't have his best day last night, but obviously maybe there was nerves because he's been talked about so much the last couple of weeks. The red card, it made so many headlines. Maybe it was a big day for him last night, and he still did plenty. But there's probably another gear in him. But if you bring on those players who can just pick you off in the last 15, 20 minutes, I think Tip could get over the line that way. So it's just a different approach to the way the likes of Limerick will bring on some athletes, Cork will bring on some speedsters, whereas Tipperary can bring on some lads who might be able to just, cut you apart in a different way.
That's your cloth, though. That's what you have. So you have to kind of use it as best as possible. The only thing I'd say about Noel is, I remember even when you were going stink that year under Bonner, who was the best player against Waterford by a country mile down in Walsh Park. And totally
I agree, but we're 3 years on, and I think, and it can be tough for players to accept coming off the bench and making an impact. But how good was Noel when he came on against Limerick? He did as much in 30 minutes as many players at the peak of their game could do in 70. So it's not this is just sort of pragmatism. Tipperary need to make sure they have lads who make an impact. And Shawnee Kennelly came on, made an impact. Oisin O'Donoghue made an impact, won a free. Willie Connors got on a couple of balls and popped them in the right place. You need lads who are going to come on and steady the ship, or at least keep you moving in the right direction. Because it's probably going to be a puck of a ball again, but for me, Tip are going to get over the line.
Yeah, I think Waterford will get over, and that's the
You're
end.
Wrong. You're just straight up wrong, and you don't even realise why.
That's the end of Tipcast for this week. I don't know. Is Nisha in the background? If he is in the background, we'll bring him in. I think he might be in the background anyway. Well, did you ever think you'd see this HOR back?
Whack-a-mole. He popped his head up there when Tipper back in the headlines and winning a couple of things. You see, well,
hey, you know what? I was saying to Nisha, we have a group with his brother and another Kilkenny lad, and a few of the Cooler crew or whatever. And I was saying to Nisha last weekend, well, are you going to go down and watch Kilkenny, or are you going to tune in to watch Tip instead? And I saw a clip from your show with Eddie Brennan during the week as well, that he'd rather watch Tipperary on telly. I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but it just says to me, Leinster people should be crying out to change the structure, because there's not Kilkenny games attracting people to GA Plus. They're not putting the Kilkenny games up there. They can only get 5,000 or 6,000 into Nolan Park. It is a dead duck. And I'd say Derek Kent, when he was handing out the Leinster title the other day to the football, the captain of the Loud football team, Sam Mulroy, he was thinking, geez, we're never going to see 60,000 in here for... And I know it happened once with Wexford against Galway, but the interest levels in Leinster is on the floor. And if I was any Leinster team out here, especially the bean counters in county boards, I'd be like, we've got to find a way to get some of these beans in here, because what an irrelevant championship we have. And you keep talking about jeopardy. Well, like, fewer teams have to come out of Leinster if you want to have any chance of jeopardy, because it's a dead duck to watch.
What do you reckon? Yeah.
Yeah, but like the Leinster football, you're talking about that, like the Leinster Football Championship, that's the first time a different team has won it, what, 15 years?
Like, I agree. And how long do you want to keep this rot going on in Leinster? Because it is just so unappealing.
Yeah, for it to change, you see, what you'd need to happen is like that Wexford would have to come back and start winning again, because like what's going on, I think, from the Kilkenny thing is like, it's just that probably they keep winning Leinster even though the team isn't the same brilliant team as it once was. So then it's kind of like, But I saw the clip with Eddie Brendan as well. You sent it in, obviously, whatever. I just thought it was funny. Like he said he stayed home doing gardening instead of going, like, driving into town and watching the match. You're like, what? Like, if I was living in Kilkenny, I'd be going into them. I used to go into the matches in Nolan Park all the time. Like,
but would you have been going into the match in Nolan Park even though Tipp and Clare was on the same time?
Oh yeah, I would have. Yeah, oh yeah.
But the fact that it's happening, that should set alarm bells that people would rather stay home.
Yeah,
in Kilkenny, they'd rather stay home and watch Tipp and Clare than go in and watch their own team. That's what a dead duck the championship is. If Kilkenny were playing some of the teams from the Munster Championship, this would not be happening. But the Leinster Championship, like, it has to give. It's got to go. Like jeopardy has to be introduced.
Scrap the league. This is potentially scrap the league. Play the provinces early doors and have an open All-Ireland Championship with 5-6 groups swapped across. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, one thing I'm definitely saying is, if I was every Leinster team, I'd be saying we need to do something because this championship is a dead duck. That is what I would be saying for sure, because other county boards are raking it in. They're getting full houses and people don't care about our championship. Joe McDonagh is more interested in the Leinster Championship, and that is actually praise of the Joe McDonagh. It's not a slight on.
Yeah, and I think another thing then as well is probably Kilkenny people probably think now as well. It's like, well, sure, we're through, and it's just like, whatever. Sure, we beat Galway, we beat Wexford, we're through. It's grand, it's fine. So I don't know. It's I kind of would have preferred if they had gotten rid of the league probably 3 or 4 years ago, and that they did that thing. I remember I've talked about this before, and this I think as well. But I heard Jamie Wall talking one time on another podcast. I remember thinking that's probably makes the most sense, where you combine like the league and the championship and have something like 12 to 14 teams competing for the Liam McCarthy, and you do like a 2-group system, and then dotted in and around it like the FA Cup in soccer is your Leinster and Munster Championship. That is straight knockout. That you just play 3-4 games, kind of just like whatever in between.
They'll say that that's not fair because the boys will go killing each other in Munster, and the Leinster boys will be just waltzing around.
Well, you know my idea. My idea is the simplest one of all, which is, and move Leinster back to being 5 teams, because there's enough no jeopardy without having 6 teams. Number 1, the Munster teams all play each other, so then you've got that table. Whoever finishes top is the champion. Just like the 5 or 6 nations, as it's now called. Exact same in Leinster. Then put your tables together and then play off for the rest of it. Top 6 go into the knockout for the All-Ireland semi-finals. Bottom 4 go into relegation to go back down to Joe McDonagh. And then you've got an unbelievable championship, and we don't go 6 years where you don't have 2 of the main counties playing each other in championship. Kilkenny and Tipperary have not played in championship since 2019. Liverpool, Man City, imagine if they didn't play it twice every season. Everyone would be saying, how insane is that? Well, we're doing it. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, but okay, but it's right. But it's 2 totally different sports and 2 totally completely different competitions. So are you saying no. 10? Are you saying
like, people are infuriated with boxing when the 2 best lads don't fight each other, and we're doing the same in GAA. Like, it's ridiculous. You have
but who's the lineal All-Ireland champion?
Who cares who the lineal All-Ireland champion is? Now, Cork and Limerick, who's going to win that?
Well, would the seedings be based on your power rankings or what?
What do you mean the seedings? There's no seedings.
So would you are you talking then about cutting it to 10 teams, 5 Munster, 5 Leinster?
Yeah, so this year relegate one team out and there's no one back up this year, or else relegate two and only one comes up. That's only a tiny little thing. Just get it back to 5-5. They all play each other on each side. Grand, whoever finishes top is the team with the most points. Now we'll put the tables together. Now we're guaranteed that every year Tipp, for example, will play against Galway, Kilkenny, Wexford, Dublin, and whoever else is up there. Like, it guaranteed, get rid of the league, pointless anyway. And all of a sudden, you're guaranteed brilliant games all year and a full schedule.
No, I'd say I'd be in favour definitely getting rid of the league, but then the whole hurling development thing and progression and all this kind of stuff then starts to come into it, because you're then cutting it again and making it, even as far as hurling development goes and progression and all this kind of stuff, right? You're making it even more elitist, where it'll just be one team, it'll just basically two teams that just keep swapping up and down.
Yeah, but part of the reason that the Leinster Championship is so uninteresting is because you have teams in there that can't compete. Too many of them. It's fine having one in, but what's the point in having so many teams in that can't compete?
Well, you wouldn't have so many. It'd just be, you'd have maybe two, kind of. That's what I said.
Leinster's already ruined because of that. Leinster is terrible because of that.
No, but I'm saying in this other system that was why I would say to push it to 12. That then you'd have maybe 3 or 4 teams fighting at the bottom, like any other league in any other sport, in any other system, where you'd have like 3 or 4 fighting at the bottom in relegation, like you were saying, that the bottom 4 would play a relegation thing, and then you'd have the top, and then that there'd be teams with room to progress, like whoever, and then also that there's teams that would be in the middle would jump up to the top, and the top slip down, and all that kind of stuff. Like that's why
it just needs more beatings. The fewer beatings, the better, because that means there's going to be 6 or 7 beatings for 2 teams. What is the point? You got to make it somewhat 5-5, keeps it even, means the schedule makes sense to absolutely everyone. But anyway, lads, this should be off-season talk. It's my own fault, but it should be off-season talk.
Shano, I know you're very important now, and your time is really, of essence. Is there anything you'd like to get off your large chest before you finish?
Me chished. That I keep tuning out in the middle of Leinster games at the moment because they're so uninteresting.
Okay, let's move away from Leinster. Theatrics is a big bugbear of yours at the minute.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any good karma for it. Look, we saw what happened down in Walsh Park when Clare played Waterford. It was ridiculous at the time, and plenty of Clare people are well slate people from other counties if they feel someone has gone down easy or a decision has gone against them or arrest or disgrace, and won't call out their own for looking like they've been shot when they got tapped on the forearm. So let's call it right. Like, you can't have it both ways. So the theatrics are terrible. The theatrics last Saturday, I should say, between Clare and Tipp. Like, what do people want Tipp to do? Say, in you come, solo in there, score a goal, trot back out to your position and fist pump away. No, if you're going to come down the centre, ball will go through, man will go through, but the two won't go through together. And don't, like, you're getting your frees. There's your 12, 13 frees, grand. Yellow cards have been handed out. Players know if they do it again, they'll be off to the touchline. But don't expect people to go ahead and just say, hurl away there, and we'll do nothing about it. You take your hits, you move on. You don't constantly go down holding your head. You don't go down holding the family jewels as we saw down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. You do like what the Tipp miners did last year when they had 2 men sent off wrongly. You hurl away and you win.
Do you know what's hilarious there? The comments coming in. It was all like, before he came on, it was like, great to have him back. Now it's like, he's here for a whinging contest. Conor Heaney said, this lad is like a caged animal that hasn't been out for 6 months.
Yeah. Now you're getting exposed to the real shit.
the mask was always going to... But what have I said that's wrong?
Everything. You don't call out your own lads for diving either.
Of course I do.
No, you don't.
And you know what I don't do? I don't go moaning about red cards like you do.
Who? What red card are you talking about? Do not say Richie Hogan's one. I have said a million times that was a red card. A million times I said that was a red card.
Yeah. So name one thing I said that's wrong.
Which red card are we talking about here?
Sure, he keeps harping back to it. He loves bringing up Richie Hogan's red card. It's a weekly text in that text group he's talking about. It is a weekly text.
No, I don't complain about red cards. I mean, they're tough to take and all that, but no, I wouldn't complain about
it. Shano, as I said, I know you are caught for time. Who wins? Who gets out of Munster 1, 2, 3, and who gets out of Leinster 1, 2, 3, and who wins the big kahuna at the end?
Cork to win Munster, Limerick second, and Tipp third. Leinster, Does anyone
Don't
really
care.
care?
Don't care.
All Ireland, Cork.
Wow. So you'd have said Cork had a soft centre for so long. You're now going
Well,
for
yeah,
Cork.
I was the one who was pumping Cork for years while you were abusing them. You were abusing them for years, and I said, no, they're coming. And here they are.
Didn't they take it on board?
No, I doubt it was nothing to do with you.
No, I tell you, if you give people enough abuse, they'll eventually take it on board. It's called positive.
People were abusing
positive
that for
bullying.
20 years and it didn't work.
Screenshots going into the WhatsApp groups.
Yeah, exactly. Shano, I don't know if I can say it was great to have you back, but thanks for coming back anyway.
A pleasure, lads. We'll do it again soon. Hopefully.
Hey, we'll see whether you're around next week. That'll be the big one. Win, lose, or draw.
The reception's going there. The reception's going.
Go on, good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know if it was great to have him back, but he was back. He was back anyway. In fairness, Nisha, Limerick, Cork. What a game to look forward to.
Yeah. It's the only one thing I was looking at the schedule again. There, it's like the matches are 2, 3, and 4 o'clock. It's just like who decided that? Because I was really looking forward to Kilkenny and Dublin, and then now it's like, well, how am I gonna get to see them all? But anyway, look, yeah, Limerick Cork. I can't wait for that match because after everyone like so Limerick drew with Tipp. You would have swore Tipp won the All Ireland after drawing that match, and then. And everyone writing off Limerick, and next thing they go along, they beat Waterford, and they're on top of the group in Munster again with Cork, and all of a sudden now it's like all these lads who had no legs and who were finished, and they've lost 2 or 3 yards of pace and all this rubbish. It's all of a sudden now they're back, and I would say they were big time target in this game. The third game, you 2 games under your belt, nice kind of breaks between them as well. It wasn't like back to back and rolling into the third week against Limerick. I can't wait. I'm like, it's Thursday today, so they'll be sending out the team sheet tomorrow and all that. Really can't wait to see what the lineup will be and who will be marking who and who they are trying to target. Because how are they going to stop Cork from scoring goals is going to be really, really interesting to see. What way do they line it up? What way do they stack their backs to stop and break down the speed and kill the momentum and don't let the sliotar in fast? How do you close that gap that Cork create between the full forward line and their half forward line? What do they do? Be really interesting to see.
I think even just naturally from having Hayes at 6 will help massively in the ground that he can cover, and just he's obviously very strong in the air as well, but even his cover and defense is brilliant. Like, he can get back. Declan Hallin's lovely, like, brilliant player, and he's that kind of, you don't like to use the word, but he was kind of nearly quarterback and controlling from there. Hayes a different type of centre back. He can cover so much ground and he offers so much getting back in, helping the full back line. Plus, Cork avoided him in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. You can't avoid 6. You can, but you will not get the same type of profit from your ball. Whereas if you're going down 6, how close are you getting the ball to the goal? If you're going down the channels, you'll reap some dividends from it, but you won't reap as much dividends as if you're able to make hay going down the middle, if you get me.
Yeah, oh, big time. So, like, this is the thing then with Kyle Hayes at centre back, like, like you're saying there, Hannon was kind of smooth, like, right place, right time, unbelievable at reading the game, savage, skillful hurler. And then Hayes kind of has that too, but then he's an absolute monster at the peak of his powers. Like, he's not too old, he's not over the hill or anything like that. Animal. So you have to avoid him at all costs. So do they run and carry it up the wings, which doesn't work against Limerick, because when you're over on the ball, they close you down, and they're so big and fit and strong and good hurlers, they'll make you lose it. But can you now start to strike it from the correct position that he's sucked out and it goes diagonally over his head into the lads inside, that it's like bouncing into the lad's hand, and Brian Hayes and whoever else is in there can take it on the turn and go and move, so that doesn't matter how fast Kyle Hayes is, he's just not getting there. That's what you're probably looking to do with somebody like Kyle Hayes, is have the centre forward dragging him out, and then you're playing it diagonally over his head, and then just open it up that way.
Now I think it's kind of funny, and we're nearly talking about what Limerick do to stop what worked well for Cork last year, and I'm sure they will have some things in place. And I'd say Dermot Burns' wing is the wing that will be peppered, and they've tried to move him around, and Harney's run into space then on the wing or whatever. And even Jamie Barron caused Burns a bit of trouble the other day, and I think Cork will look to try to do something similar. Pose questions to him early on, potentially get him on a yellow as well early on, and then make a move or whatever. But what, like, Limerick will have, like, Paul Kinnock and Kiley and Alan Cunningham, these boys, they've surely been thinking about this for a long time. Like, there's going to be a lot of different tricks up their sleeve, you'd imagine, as well. Trying to guess what they are is a difficult thing, but you'd imagine they're going to have more to their arsenal than they would have had before.
Oh yeah, you would think so. Like, and again, like I was saying, it's the third game. It's perfectly lined up for them that they'd be getting ready for it, because it's not too close to a Munster final, let's say. And it's like you have 2 games under your belt. So between training and the 2 championship matches, you should know by now what's your best team going out and how you're going to beat Cork. Like, because again, like, it's funny, like, loads of people probably already have Cork picked as the Munster champions, but Limerick are after winning what, the last 7, is it?
6, going for 7, yeah.
Yeah, just ultra competitive championship that the one team keeps winning for the last 7 or 8 years. So this, the thing is, like, they're not going to just give up their crown to Cork because everybody thinks they're better. Like, so they definitely will have a plan. And, like, you know, the other side of it then is, like, how do Cork stop Limerick? How, like, you know, how do they stop Cian Lynch? How do they stop Hegarty? How do they stop Cathal O'Neill? How do they stop O'Brien inside? Like, you know, just the bull forward. You know, like, how do they stop these lads? Like, they can, if you want to mix it, they'll mix it, and you want to hurl it, like, they'll hurl. You want to move it, they'll move it. You want to run, like, their running game. Like, everyone always says, like, oh, you know, their running game. Their running game is a completely different type of running game than Cork's, where Limerick physically run, but an awful lot of it is actually without the ball, whereas Cork's was always soloing. But then the problem then is that sucks people towards you, and then if you don't have your head up, like, you lose it far easier. Whereas Limerick's is run, move, pass. Next thing, all of a sudden, Barry Nash is on the end of it, and you're going, where did he come from? Scores a point and runs back, you know. Tipp did a real interesting thing in the league in the first half against Limerick. Remember that game? And, you know, Keneally, I said the lad thing and all that kind of stuff. Like, but, like, I thought he was deadly in that game. Like, real good in the air, scored that class goal, obviously, but it was an outlet and all that. But I can't remember, was it Tynan was on Dermot Burns in the first half. And what he did was he basically stood in beside the centre forward. So that whole wing was open because Dermot Burns went with him. So the whole wing was open. And Dermot Burns wasn't really in the game in the first half. And then obviously they changed something around and he was out in the wing in the second half and he just absolutely took over the match. But, like, you kind of nearly have to do something like that. But then are Limerick going to fall for it again? Is the other side of it. Like, that you just somehow drag someone completely out of position and then open up this huge avenue and attack it. Like, so that, I just remember that day thinking that was really interesting out to Tipp. It didn't work in the second half. It didn't carry on.
Tipp have done some interesting enough things actually against Limerick and even against Burns. Remember, I think Ger Brown hit him for 4 points in Bonner's year, I think. And they actually overloaded Burns' side to the point where they didn't allow him to get on any ball where he could strike long on his right-hand side. They were, you know what I mean? And they made him always turn back. But I do think if Burns plays well, I'd say Limerick will win. But that's far from a given. Like, and as well, with regards to Limerick, you would have said after the game in the park last year, you would have said, oh, the same thing won't happen to Limerick again. And the exact same thing happened in the All-Ireland semi-final. So you were talking about styles. I think Waterford match up well with Tipp from a Waterford point of view. Waterford do not match up well against Limerick. Cork match up really well, I think, from a Cork point of view against Limerick now. So I just think that's a fascinating game. I find it very, very hard to call from a point of view of, well, from both sides as well. If you win, you're in a Munster final and you can kind of take the foot off in the last round. So to say that, you know, part of me is thinking that Cork will beat them and Limerick will get another crack at them in Munster, maybe another crack at them in an All-Ireland final. But then you're kind of thinking, if they can beat them now, there's a psychological thing. If there is anything there, I'm not saying there is, but you're putting it to bed if you beat them now. And you know you have the beating of them again. And it's just in the psyche a bit as well. So that kind of comes into it too. But there's a hell of a lot to play for. Now, they do both have a back door, shall we say, or another game, Whereas Tipp don't have another game. Waterford do, but it's going to be a tough game that they have coming against Cork. And maybe a Cork team that really need a win. Do you know what I mean? So kind of, it's all in a bit of a state of flux, and that's manna from heaven for viewers and people tuning in.
Yeah. Just from a Waterford point of view, I think like you can't be kind of saying, well, look, we have another game to make up. I just think that needs to be, and I'm sure it would be, like, you know, they're high level enough. That has to be parked. It should be just all about, we have to beat Tipperary here. We have to beat Tipperary, and that is it. Just win that game, and then whatever happens next week, or whatever happens the week after happens, whatever. It doesn't matter what happens between Limerick and Cork. We just need to beat Tipp. And they just cannot, like that Tipp and Clare game last week, and like John McGrath got 2 goals, but I don't know how he missed that other one in the first half. And like Clare were about, I don't know what they were doing defensively. Like after you would have thought they'd learned their lessons after the Cork game in the league. They just they were dragged all the way out the field. And it's just like, sure, no wonder they were opening up. There was no defenders there. There was like no defenders. Like it was madness. It was, to see that at inter-county level, it was crazy. And I wouldn't imagine Waterford with Tadhg de Búrca and everybody else around them are going to let that happen. That won't happen. So I wouldn't imagine it'd be as open. It'll probably be more. It'll be obviously 100 miles an hour, but I couldn't imagine it being as open a match as that first half against Clare was.
Yeah, I think there's big scope in Waterford as well. I don't think de Búrca has hit the heights in the championship yet. Déise Hutchinson definitely. He definitely hasn't hit the heights. Even looking at the last day, and I know we mentioned the 6-day turnaround, Bennett was probably off. Barron was probably off a bit. Prunty, I thought, fought hard, even though there was a lot of really good ball going in. Mark Fitzgerald was probably the beacon of light shining from that game. But they have their break now. I think Jack Prender will be re-energised. Darren Lyons will be re-energised. I think they match up really well against Tipp. And I think when push comes to shove, I think they might just get the result.
And I think they probably have a stronger panel as well. Like, I know, like, Staper there was talking about, like, the lads that Tipp can bring in, but, like...
Is he some man? In fairness to him, he'd have you believing that they were going to win the All-Ireland, like.
Listen, I'm listening to this the last, I don't know how long. That group text he's on about, like, it's just like, will you give over? And he's like, you're all tuned out. It's like, yeah, no, we're tuned out from you. I don't know. So it's just, Waterford, I think, again, and I was saying this after the league, and then they're probably lucky as well the way it worked out, where you know, you're not getting bumped around. You know, people or teams don't really have a great record after you get beaten or play against Limerick. Win or lose or draw, they usually fall into the next match and lose because you're so physically drained. But I think, like, even like you were saying there, Barron, there's more in him. There's obviously more in him. He was taken off there. Austin Gleeson is an interesting one. You know, they brought him on for, what was it, like 5 minutes there in that game? For Barron, actually, I think, where, you know, you're kind of going, well, if he's coming on for 5, I wonder, could he play now against Tipp for 15 or 20? And in Semple Stadium, like, you'd imagine, like, loads of his highlights come from the Semple Stadium games, like, you know, so...
Mark Flick,
like... Or some of them over the shoulder points, or his big long solo runs, and like
his deadly solo run was against Cork in Semple, wasn't it? Remember when he announced himself in 2014? He soloed the whole way in, struck it off the hurl, beat Anthony Nash. I think that was 14 in Semple Stadium. Yeah, maybe there's another.
And that one where he was on the knees and slapped it up, did the John Troy pick up into his hands and boom over the bar. You know, you're going, Jesus. And when he's on, he is electric. But look, fitness wise, who knows? Only the people in the camp really know. But you know, I just think I'd be like you. Like, I think there's more in Waterford. And again, I had them picked at the start of the year. It was Cork, Limerick, Waterford. I had
call Cork and Limerick as well.
Do you know what? I think I'll go with Limerick to win that. I think I'll just Limerick beat Cork.
Conor Heaney had it up 1-2. Verney goes for Limerick. I actually think that Cork will beat them the first time. And I think they might beat them the second time, but they won't beat them the third time. That's what I think. So I think Cork will win this weekend.
So funny, yeah. Now I think it'll go the other way around. Limerick will win this Sunday, but then if Cork and Limerick play a Munster final, I think Cork will win that. And if it gets to Croke Park, Limerick will win that.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll
like Cork also have, we talk about the psychological element from Limerick. Cork also have the chance to, like, they beat them twice last year. They beat them again, like 3 in a row. Like surely that just fires something into the back of your mind to think, like, we have these. When push comes to shove, when they meet again, you're thinking, oh, we've done it once, we've done it twice, we've done it 3 times. Why we can do it again? And then you're thinking there's psychological damage maybe from a Limerick point of view playing Cork, or Cork have Limerick spooked. So you're saying there's a psychological thing from Limerick that are trying to get the edge back. Cork can really maintain that edge and add to it if they beat them again.
Yeah, and isn't it such a funny thing there? Like, so like Limerick have all these All-Irelands and all these Munster titles, but yet Cork keep beating them. Well, not keep beating them, but you know, Cork have beaten them at like more than a couple of times. Like Kilkenny bet them once, and you're going, God, that was such a great win. But then you basically like Tipperary won, like, you know. But like Cork have beaten them like fairly, relatively consistently, but then don't have any of these medals. Like it's such a strange rivalry where, you know, one team kind of keeps beating the other, but then the other team has all the trophies. Like it's an odd one.
Yeah. Leinster, Nisha, like the scheduling is a ball. There's no point in saying any different. You're just, obviously, and the funny thing about it is if you start watching Tipp and Waterford, it's very hard to stop watching it if it's right on a knife edge, which it probably will be. That throws in at 2. Kilkenny Dublin throws in at 3. Kilkenny Dublin's not on anywhere. Am I right in saying?
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm covering that on Sunday, so I get to see bits of the first game. But that's a funny one. And then you obviously have Limerick and Cork at 4. And listen, let's call a spade a spade. That's another one of the main reasons why people aren't going to games. You go to Kilkenny and Dublin at 3, you miss everything else that's on that day, and chances are those, like, a lot of what people will be talking about are the 2 Munster games, if you get me, as well, because they're the 2 probably biggest shows in town. So it all kind of feeds into it.
Yeah, it should have been. It just should have been a Saturday Sunday thing. Tipp Waterford is a big game no matter what. Clare Limerick or Cork Limerick, massive game no matter what. You can't have Kilkenny and Dublin then sandwiched in between them. It's like, and it's working out, and people would have known at the start of the championship or at the start of the year, this will probably be a fairly big game in Leinster. Maybe just put that on its own at 6 o'clock on Saturday, and show it on GA Plus or whatever the hell you want to show it on. Put it on that, and then have the other 2 big games on there. Like, you know, it's crazy scheduling. It's absolutely crazy. It's ridiculous, really. It's just like that. If you wanted to go and watch Kilkenny and Dublin, which loads of people would, like, because they're usually good games, and especially now Dublin are looking pretty good, like, in Leinster. But now it would nearly make you not want to go, because you'd get to stay at home and watch 2 savage hurling matches on telly from your couch. Like, you know, it's you know, talking about shooting yourself in the foot. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Couple of viewers in saying it is on GA Plus. Maybe it is. I wasn't aware that it was when I checked it. I saw the games were being televised. I know there's a Tailteann Cup game on Sunday on GA Plus. I think, I can't remember who exactly.
So you know, the other thing then you were saying too about it's hard to start watching one match and then switch over to the other. Well, like, I've never done that. It'd be like, if I'm watching this match, I'll watch this match and then I'll pick up the other one. I wouldn't be like, oh well, this one is starting, so I'll stop watching and turn to. I just be like, well, no, whatever. It's just overlapping matches is crazy in the championship. It's absolutely crazy.
And an up and smart, if you're watching one hurling match, there's enough going on for you to watch one.
Exactly.
Trying to watch 2 is an absolute disaster.
Doesn't work.
But I was working in Nolan Park last Saturday. That game threw in at 6, and the Ulster final was at 5:25, and Clare and Tipp was at 6 o'clock, and I had screens on the laptop or whatever, but you can't. You're literally, it's only a break and play. You're looking at the score or something like that. You can't. If you're watching something, you need to be watching it. Do you know what I mean? Or you're watching it, but you're not watching it at all, if you get me.
Well, you can watch Gaelic football like that. Anyway, it's handy.
In fairness, the new football is much harder to do that with.
Is it? Yeah. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, in fairness, it's from a point of view of working at a match. You used to be able to, like, you could be filing your report during the match, and we still have to do that to a point. But now it's like you're like that, because there's always something happening, which is great, to be fair.
Actually, we were on my brother's stag there in Carlingford when Galway and Mayo were playing, and whatever, Mayo went ahead by whatever, and next thing you know, a couple of points later, you look back up, you're like, oh, Galway are winning. You're like, what the hell happened there? You know, last year, 2 years ago, that would have been a case of, right, we're up by 6 points. Everybody get back here, you know, and it'd be just like, we're just going to see this out. So at least, yeah, maybe it must be different, like you would think. You would hope.
Kieran Russell asks, can you see a shot coming in any of the games? Waterford beating Tipp or Dublin beating Kilkenny?
Well, is Waterford beating Tipp a shock?
I don't think that. I don't think that's a shock, and I think Tipp are. As a fella said it to me the other day, are Tipp back? He said Tipp are on their way back, but they're not back, and I think that's good. I think that's a good way of putting it, and they could easily be left back on their you know what on Sunday from 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and this is why I kind of didn't really understand. I know, like, you know, that kind of viral interview where Cal was asked, you know, are you going to see out your time or whatever, and he took umbrage with it, not all that kind of stuff. Like, where I was kind of going, what do people expect Liam Cal to do? They have to rebuild a completely new team, and there's obviously like good underage players and teams coming through the last few years, like minor Ireland, the 20s last night and all that. There's obviously players again coming through, like there's always going to be hurlers in Tipperary, that whole thing, blah blah blah. But like, it was a huge rebuild he has to do. Like, what did they think he was going to go in and win All Ireland with this panel the last 2 years? Like, no way. They were nowhere near it. Like, they're not near that level. So
sorry now, from a professional point of view, he still had to be asked that question though.
No. I get that. But people on the outside giving out about Cal, like, and saying like, oh, you know, get him out, or get this idea. It's like, well, who else is it? What is he going to do? Cal is obviously a good manager and a good coach, and then he has a really good coaching team with him now. It's just that, like, loads of their best players are probably either gone the wrong side of 30 or are, you know, younger than 23. So it's like it's this weird balancing act where the gap between the youngest and the oldest lads is probably too large, like, basically.
I'm fascinated, and we're kind of jumping around games here, but I'm fascinated to see what, if any, bounce Tipp will get from the fact that they were well up in that game, they were out of sight, they were reeled in, and the easy thing to do would have been to fold the tent. And it would have been the easy thing to do. They're after been reeled in. Ennis was going to explode. O'Donnell was on the field. It was a perfect storm building up for Clare to win, and they dug the heels in. Yeah. And I wonder what sort of a bounce they'll get off that, because, as I said, when I just on with Shane, there should hadn't won a Munster game in 2 years or whatever. They hadn't won since. Am I right in saying they hadn't won since they got the 5 goals in Ennis 2 years previous? So I'm fascinated to see what sort of a hop they get from that. Belief wise, I'm like, we're here. Fair enough. We don't match up hectic against Cork, but we match up pretty well against all the rest of the teams, and we can beat any of the rest of them.
Okay, so that was a funny thing, actually. I'd like watching the game, and you're kind of going, oh, here we go now to like Clare. Now the other thing as well is Clare definitely should have won that game at the end. Who was it running? Galvin running through, dropping the ball. Disaster, dropping it out of your hand like that. And then the last chance, this is wrecking me head now, running in and tried to hand pass it.
It was the Clooney Quinn to Clooney Quinn, and it didn't go to hand. It was Ryan Taylor to Duggan, wasn't it?
There you go, right? So Taylor, Duggan is on his left-hand side, and this is a huge bugbear of mine. Somebody that gets to this level of inter-county hurling and cannot hand pass it with each hand. He should have hand passed it with his right hand and given it to Duggan running towards the goal, whereas instead he had to stop and open his body and hand pass it with his left to a point where Duggan is kind of reaching back, and it's not into his path. Yeah, this just rubbish, like, right? It just, and people are like, that's too slow. You shouldn't be hand passing with each hand. You have to be able to hand pass with both hands, and that is an example why, because that pass doesn't go to his hand because he can't hand pass it with his top hand. He doesn't get a goal. And then Clare now are out of the championship, right? So them 2 instances could have been 2 goals, and that was all the momentum we're going with Clare. But like you were saying there, and John McGrath had kind of gone out of the game, and next thing he pops up with a point and showed real grit, and like that's like leadership and experience and all that kind of stuff, and just skill and just an understanding of the game, and the fact they left him on, where you're kind of going, God, he's gone so quiet for so long, you wouldn't be surprised if you took him off. But you leave him on, you show faith in him, and he pops up and gets a point. I think he won a free as well, and you're going, you know, that's great. And for a Tipperary point of view, you'd be going, that's a good sign actually there now that they pulled that out, because it was like, oh, Clare have all the momentum now. Here we go. We've seen Tipp doing this against Limerick, or we've seen him get ahead and then get pulled back and they lose. But like Jays, like that last 10 minutes, like you'd really be kind of if you can't take anything out of that, you won't take anything out of anything. Like that was just a real championship grown up victory to see it out like that. But then I wouldn't be shocked if Tipp won or if Waterford won. So I don't think one way or the other that's a huge shock. I'd be maybe surprised if Tipp won. I'm expecting Waterford to win, but I wouldn't be shocked. And in Dublin Kilkenny the same. I don't think Dublin winning would be a huge shock. But if they do win, it'll probably be something ridiculous where each team scores 4 goals.
But honestly, well, are we going back to 2013 since Dublin last beat Kilkenny in the championship?
Might be, yeah. No, they were kind of close and robbed a couple of times there. Remember the one in Parnell Park under Pat Gilroy? They were robbed that day. It could be that far.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And then like somebody made a point to me there maybe 3-4 years ago now at this stage. This kind of malaise that came in over the Dublin senior hurling team and panel and all, because a transition happened where a lot of the kind of older lads that won the league and then won the Leinster championship and had been winning things underage or getting to All-Ireland finals underage, they were all kind of gone, and the only one left was Danny Sutcliffe. So there was like just this thing of like, sure, we're here and we'll get to Leinster final, and sure, we'll see what happens, and it's great to be part of it. And yeah, we just kind of tip away that the real ruthless winning side was gone out of the squad because none of them had grown up winning. There was like teams that came up winning All-Irelands with Dublin colleges, teams that won minor Leinster championships under 21, getting to All-Ireland finals and under 21 and minor and all this kind of stuff, like that. They had all gone. So that there was this kind of malaise over the Dublin senior hurling team. So you're kind of hoping, again, from a Dublin hurling point of view, that goes away and that they really, really like attack this game against Kilkenny and try and go for it. And then from a Kilkenny point of view as well, you want to see, look, Dublin are coming to town. They look like they're going to be the contenders for Leinster championship this year. Are you going to beat?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Cody, a hamstring injury, didn't play against Offaly. Similar, it was actually kind of similar last year. I think it was an ankle injury. He came back against Dublin, wasn't at his sharpest, but ended up winning the game with that deadly goal into the what would you call that end? It's probably the Donecarney end or the golf course end, isn't it? It was a deadly goal. Adrian Mullen came on the last day. Didn't look particularly sharp, been honest, and I think it's going to take a while for him to get back to full fitness. TJ looked sharp enough, in fairness, and he left with 1-1 from play in each half. So I think Dublin have a decent shout this weekend. I think it'll be very tight, but I still think Kilkenny will probably win the game realistically. Some of the other Leinster games, like Offaly are 0 from 3 now. Wexford are like, Wexford need all sorts of mathematical miracles to happen for them to go through. I don't know if you saw that Wexford Galway game last weekend, but I just couldn't believe what I was watching in the first half. They were playing with a big breeze and they'd won inside, and it was just, I couldn't believe what I was watching. And then in the second half against the breeze, they played loads of lads in deep and went for goals, and they got them. But it was almost like they should have flipped their tactics, and that's the way they should have been playing in the first half. I couldn't get over what I was watching in the first half, and it ultimately cost them. And when our team's going to cotton on to the fact that if you have to sacrifice someone to follow Cathal Mannion around the field, then so be it, because you just can't allow him. I think it was 17 last weekend, 6 from play. You cannot allow as good a ball striker as that and as good a hurling brain as that just to go around like by himself and find up pockets of space anywhere. If you have to sacrifice someone, it mightn't fit into your plan, but like if you have to, and it helps you win the game, and you're a bit more open, but you're a bit more open with forwards that you're happier to be open against than Cathal Mannion, then so be it, surely.
But like, again, like, this is things like your plan, okay, right, your plan is great and all that, but like every game is different because everybody has different level of forwards. Like, it's like when Clare played Kilkenny up in Croke Park that time, and they just let Adrian Mullen walk all around the place, and he got whatever the hell he got from play, like, and you're just like, somebody just mark him. Like, you know, just get your best, like what Kilkenny do with Clare. You go Mikey Butler, wherever Tony Kelly is, you are grand. I don't care if he's inside, if he's outside, if he's midfield, you're going with him. And then they restructure and everyone's moving around and they're ready to go.
You know that quote in The Last Dance is like, Michael is not going to beat us. And like, if someone outside of their best player beats you, no problem. Don't let their best player beat you. Like, you know that's their biggest strength. So at least go after that. It creates more space and more latitude for other players. If they're able to beat you and win the game, fair enough.
Oh, I thought you were turning into Ger Canning there. Significant latitude. But yeah, like that's a big thing in American football as well. It's just like, right, well, look, he's definitely not beating us. If somebody else beats us, that's fine. But he's definitely not. And like that just has to be the way. Because it's like, right, okay, look, we're going to clamp down this lad, and then let's see what the rest of them have. And if you're not up to it, someone else is coming in your place. But you are man marking him. You're our best man marker. He's their best forward. Like it's not that hard, you would think.
From a Galway point of view, I think Galway will put a score again over Antrim this weekend. I think they will put a serious score. Antrim have a load of injuries. I think the only game like Davies' season is saved if they win against Offaly and they retain Leinster status. Everyone will forget what came before. They'll talk about the injuries they had, the players they lost, and it will be we retained our Leinster status. So that's all that matters. I think, like if you remember last year as well, when Darren Gleeson was manager, Kilkenny absolutely annihilated them the week before. One of their best results ever when they beat Wexford in the championship. So I think Galway will put a score on this weekend. Offaly and Wexford, like Offaly have a chance of getting a result, but in the grander scheme of things, again, the Antrim game is the only show in town. That's the game that they're going to be judged on. As I said it before, if they're relegated back to McDonagh, that's an absolute disaster. No point in saying any different. So I think Offaly will go with a strong enough team, but if there's a couple of knocks or whatever, I think you have to think of the next week. You have to have that in mind.
Yeah. I got a mad kind of thought there for a second, but then you're like, actually, it'd be depressing enough. Or I was like, would that not be a deadly curtain raiser to the Leinster final? Antrim and Offaly in the one-off game, and then the Leinster final after. But then it's like, actually, no, it'll be rough enough. But that's the game. That's the game now, because the way the fixtures are panning out, it doesn't look like either team is going to get results against any of the rest of them. Kind of compared to last year, the year before, where Westmeath got the draw and Antrim beat Wexford and all that kind of stuff, where it works out, and Carlow draw with Kilkenny. So then it's like, oh geez, it is going to come down to that very last game now, where it's just like you're going to probably get one win, and it has to be against the other team. There's one game you have to win this year, and it's that one match against Offaly or against Antrim, whatever camp. So, and like that, Offaly, go up into 1A, and if they can retain Leinster, that's really as good as you're getting. As that's what you wanted from the season, I'd imagine, this year, especially with the 20s getting knocked out, which was like I would think so far in the hurling year, the biggest shock of the year in the hurling, because Dublin weren't going great under 20, and now they're in the Leinster final. Like they beat Offaly. I remember just seeing the results. I was kind of, geez, that's a mad one. And but look, they've done really well. The Dublin 20s down in the Leinster final next week. But yeah, no, Offaly and Antrim, it has to be just tunnel vision to that game in Tullamore.
It's funny with the Offaly 20s. I kind of knew that was coming, and it just they just had they were down 4 or 5. Screeney was only. They hadn't been going hectic. The seniors had been going really well, and they had been pulling a large cohort away from the 20s. And they weren't able to get the quality of games that they would have had before, and they weren't able to get the continuity. And in defence, they were really, really under pressure. But in fairness to Dublin, that was a right good result against Galway last night. Galway had a heap of wides, I believe. But that was a very, very good result. And it's Dublin and Kilkenny now. And the thing about it as well is that, like, if you can win your profits, like, straight into an All-Ireland final, like straight into the biggest dance of them all, like, what a prize at stake. There's a question in there just about, will Peter Casey feature, or is he in contention? By all accounts, very, very small injury that he had that saw him not feature against Waterford. It was the same with Barry Murphy. So I'd be expecting both of those to be back in the mix. That was the vibe I was getting anyway. Nisha, a couple of quick things that we have to cover. Kildare 2 from 3 in the McDonagh, after taking down Carlow, and totally deservedly, by all accounts, at the weekend.
Mad. Well, like, shock result, mad, like, because we were kind of going, oh, geez, look, it looks like Carlow are going to run away with this here now, like, and then Kildare having won a game, the Joe McDonagh and however many, and they win one, you're going, brilliant, it's fair play to them, lovely, love seeing them kick on, and then next thing you know, they win again, and I tell you, Brian Dowland is doing no harm to his CV now either, like, this is another feather in the cap there for Brian, so fair play to them, but like, that's a big result for Kildare hurling. It's just,
yeah.
What?
It should be 3 from 3. They should have beaten Kerry the first weekend. They were beaten by point. Easily, they could easily be undefeated. I'll put it to you that way.
And that's the funny one, is like, where you kind of would have expected them to beat Kerry based on the league and stuff. You'd be kind of going, and then that's the one they don't win. But then, like, look, obviously they learned lessons, and now they're pushing on and driving it on and kind of starting to maybe finally fulfill this kind of potential that's been there for a while. But it kind of blows the McDonagh now a bit fairly wide open here now, because now it's like we were saying, like, oh, down Carlow, Laois, but now it's Kildare, Carlow, Laois, and you're kind of going, oh, which one of them now won't go up? Because you'd be kind of thinking on current form, you'd be expecting Kildare to go up, but like Laois and Carlow aren't exactly going to like roll over and allow them win the thing, like,
Yeah, like Laois are flying. I don't know if you see. Did you see James Duggan's 5-2 the other day in one half? 5-2.
That's like it's like the fella, that's 6 foot tall playing under 14 or something like.
Yeah. It's literally an under 12 or an under 14 score. Do you know what I mean? It's something you don't see. And in fairness to Laois GA, they post some great stats actually, just about different landmarks for different players. And I think that was the biggest score that anyone had put up for Laois in championship since 1939 or something like that from play. I think it's outrageous. And that was the same weekend that Luke Loughlin scored 117 for the Westmeath footballers as well. There was some crazy tallies over the weekend. Anything else pick your fancy, Nisha, from any of the other divisions? The ring is obviously very tight as well. London are right in the mix. Wicklow are right in the mix. Wicklow got a good result over, who did Wicklow beat last weekend? Was it Derry? Wicklow had a good result last weekend. They're right in the mix. And Meath are out of the mix now because they were beaten at the weekend. But
Derry Wicklow's this weekend, I think, isn't it?
That's basically, if you win that, you're in the final essentially.
Yeah, so like, we had an old altercation after a league game one time with Wicklow a few years ago. So there's some of them lads still playing. The lad who was called the name is still playing. So you'd be kind of hoping from a Derry point of view now to really shove it down their throats and beat them here now and get out of it and win this game and prove a point and nail them. You'd be hoping from a Derry point of view. So no, it's a huge game because Derry have been so close now in the Christy ring for so many years. It like just like getting to a final, losing in a semi-final to the eventual winner, like that happened to us twice, and then it just they're one team behind all the time. It's really really frustrating. So like you'd be hoping this year now just make the breakthrough this year, for God's sake, from a Derry hurling point of view.
Former Derry player Nisha Waldron, sorry, there he is. Former Wicklow player Michael Verney. I couldn't get me game, but I ended up getting the last 2 minutes of a Christy Ring Cup game. Leave it so, will you? I have the jersey somewhere in some closet that I never want to see again. But Nisha, great to have you on board again. We'll talk soon, all right?
Good luck. Good
man. Loads of hurling talk there, and it was good to have the Saint back around for a while. He might drop in at some stage again. Loads of football to get through with Adam Moynihan now. What a weekend it was. Adam, the 2 provincial finals. Jeez, we haven't been as entertained by football in I don't know how long.
Unbelievable. The 2 games, kind of for slightly different reasons. They were both very entertaining, both highly entertaining. I think the standard and the quality of the football was a bit higher in the Ulster final. That's not to say there wasn't good football played as well in the Loud and Meath game, but there was kind of a lot of mistakes early on. I don't know, was it nerves or whatever, a big occasion for both teams. But Ulster was incredible entertainment. It was just like, what a show. The colour, the noise, like
Have you been to the final, no?
I was just about to. I was about to say that I'm going next year. I'm going next year. Like it's just like it's. I was thinking back to like the Munster final up the road from me here a couple of weeks ago. Like, and I wanted to pull my eyes out of my head. Like it was so there was nothing at stake. And then watching that on TV is just that's what football is like. You know, like you see people complaining about maybe there wasn't enough kicking. Like there was a lot of hand passing, but like it was fast, and that's all you want. Like you can have a good football game that has a lot of hand passing as long as it's fast, entertaining. And there was still high quality kicking on show. Like Donegal in the first ever booting into Michael Murphy. Like that storyline is just, it's so enjoyable seeing him out there. The one-handed catch, like just unbelievable. And then to see him at the end with his dad and this kind of stuff is just, that's an amazing storyline. But you know, Donegal nearly threw it away at the end of normal time. Like they had that play. There was 4 minutes to go. Paddy Morgan kind of went through on goal, and they did a period of possession before that. And he turned down a shot. They were up a point. He turned down a shot. It came back out and kept the ball. And I know, like, you understand the logic that, okay, he might score that, but you're giving the ball back to Armagh, who can go down and get a 2-pointer or a goal and whatever, and you could end up losing the game. But I just thought it was a bit early. Like 4 minutes is a long time to keep possession, and they'd already had it for a minute before that. So
what did you when Loud went the next day then and did it for even longer?
Oh, like, see, this is a big thing, and teams are going to have to plan for what to do in these situations. And to go to the Loud game, like they were brilliant. That they did really, really well, and Meath couldn't get a finger on them. And as a kind of neutral, I was there going, geez, like push up, like, you know, grab a man. But I suppose fellas are so tired at that stage of the game that it might look easy on TV to chase 20 yards after a fella, but at that stage maybe it was too hard. But I saw that Matthew Costello in an interview during the week. The Meath player, he was saying like, oh, it was difficult to get the ball back and things like that. And he actually said, like, you don't want to foul. But I think that if you go back to the end of extra time in the Ulster final, Donegal were keeping possession. Armagh were obviously getting frustrated. Time was running out. Donegal played the ball in, I think it was to Kieran Moore, and Ethan Rafferty came out and cleaned him out of it. Like, he obviously was trying to get a nick in the ball, but he took him out of it. And Moore went down. The referee stopped the clock because Moore went down, and you're talking now, this is in the last minute of the game. Donegal were holding on to it, and stopping the clock is actually bad for Donegal in that situation, obviously, because you're trying to waste time, but you're actually giving time back to the other team if you do that. So maybe next time that happens, your man might hop up a bit faster. But it was the right thing for Rafferty to do, because all of a sudden, when you stop the ball and a fella has to take a free, it gives your teammates a chance to get touch tight with their man. And all of a sudden, that was as close as Armagh came to getting the ball back, that restart. It was a 50-50 pass. I can't remember who won it, but it was a very tight one, and they won it, and they went down around that sideline and back around and came over to their sideline, and they had to boot the ball over the sideline and celebrate at the Hooter. But I think definitely, like, there's no point. I mean, if you're not getting anywhere near them, and you can look around and see that your teammates are 20 yards off in certain places, I think you actually have to intentionally foul and make it a good hard one as well, that you knock them over and like give everyone a few seconds. But no, it was unbelievable drama, and I'm a big fan of the Hooter, to be honest. I way prefer it to this whole thing of like, oh sure, they got a point, so we have to give the boys a chance to go down now and have one more chance. So I think it tidies it up a bit, but definitely we'll see some tactical innovations around what to do defensively as the season goes on.
Here's one for you, and I'm only thinking of as you were talking. Would a team in that situation intentionally do a 3-man breach and give them a 1-pointer? Maybe it would be a 2-pointer that they go for it, but the ball would go dead, and they concede a point similar to basketball, like fouling a fella, you know, to try and get the ball back or whatever. Like, would that be something I wonder that a team would consider potentially?
It's thinking outside the box. I'm sure someone's considered it somewhere down the line. I've never thought of that. I suppose it depends on
or like a descent breach or something, and it's brought up and it's on the 13 or whatever. What you can't turn around. Well, you can turn around and kick it all right if you want, but there's a fair chance you can give it away, like, because it's going to be a press and you're going to be down a man.
It's definitely a good point. I suppose they probably wouldn't go in as far as the 13. They'd probably come out to the arc because it gives them more angles to make the pass. They want to make the pass, and I suppose then, would they go for the 2, depending on like what the margin is, if you know what I mean? Now, if it's a 1-point game and it goes out to 2, are you thinking, well, even if they shoot, we can get the ball back and maybe get a goal, as in that's like a Hail Mary opportunity? There is something in it probably, But
it's better than not getting a chance at all. Isn't that the most frustrating word?
I'd say to drive you absolutely mental in that scenario, knowing that the other team have like a minute to go, and you just can't lay a hand on them. It is very easy to keep possession in Gaelic football. Like it is very easy to do that. It's you're running around with a ball in your hand. It's not like soccer where it's more difficult to control the ball, and your passes under pressure are more difficult. Controlling the ball under pressure is more difficult. In football, all you need is like a yard away from your man, and you should be able to secure possession. So, I found it very fascinating the way both games ended, and just unbelievable to see, especially in Louth. Like I know the end of the Armagh game was really exciting as well, and there was a bit of a dust up and all that kind of stuff. But there's just the scenes in Louth to see how much it meant to fellas, and the tears, and like the scenes on the hill. Like it's just great to have those days back in the Leinster Championship, and no disrespect to Dublin, but like hopefully it's not the last time it happens for a while,
Just quickly, we obviously have to bring it up, like the scenes after the Ulster final. What did you make? As I said earlier on the week, every action has a reaction. That you're not right necessarily for reacting or whatever. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. What do you reckon?
Yeah, like so I suppose the important thing is that like I suppose we don't know the ins and outs of what happened throughout the game. So it looks bad that Donegal fella go in front of the Armagh bench and kind of celebrating like that. That's not good behavior. And like I would just say, like, just go off and celebrate. Like why would that be the first thing you think about when you've had such a great win? Like go with your teammates or the fans coming onto the pitch, and like it could be such a euphoric time to kind of go down the road of kind of gloating or almost in front of your opposition. But like that, I don't know the players involved. I've only seen the footage that probably we've all seen from I think Maurice Brosnan had it up on Twitter. He got the footage by accident. I'd say he was trying to just capture the scenes at the end of the game. But like it's like was something said earlier in the game, those boys could have been hopping ball heavy for the whole day, like, or it could go back to 6 months, like you just wouldn't know. But definitely you wouldn't like to see that part. So you can understand why Armagh would be upset about it. Having said that, like there's no defense, like there's no condoning running onto the field and clattering a fella. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't like it's one thing saying that your man should have been a good winner and not be a sore winner, so to speak. But there's being a bit of a sore loser as well, and just like you can just roll your eyes at it and say, look, your man's been a bit of an idiot there. Like just ignore him or whatever, and we'll regroup and come back and we'll get them down the line, kind of thing. But it's ugly enough, and you know what? It was very dangerous. Like with all the fans coming on, like thousands of people streaming onto the pitch, and obviously most of them didn't, if you know what was happening. Like they were just like running on, celebrating, and next thing there's guys rolling down the ground, and it was messy. And I'd like to know what's going to happen from it, because how many times are we back here talking about something violent happening on the pitch and fellas are getting slaps on the wrist, and it's like, well, what's the point? Like, it's not a deterrent. So, like I said, I don't know who's involved, but
kind of like inadmissible almost. And
say that again, sorry.
Talk of the footage being almost inadmissible and that they can't use it. Like, I don't know. To me, like you have to do whatever you have to do, and if you have to cut through a heap of red tape, then so be it. Like if you know who the parties are involved, something has to happen to make sure. As you say there, think about it. It was close to nearly 8 o'clock on a Saturday evening. A lot of that, like men in particular, were full. Like, and God, that could have been a disaster. Lucky enough, it only was what it was, and that. As you say, people were preoccupied with celebrating the win and going over the players or whatever, and it was taken apart relatively quickly. But it could have been a disaster.
Oh yeah, it was. It could have been very messy. And just on the rules thing there, I agree with you 100%. Like, it's kind of like the camogie thing with the skirts, and they're going, well, these are the rules. We can't do anything. These are the rules. But like, if the rule is like kind of completely goes against common sense and what's the right thing for the sport, then the rule shouldn't be there. And it's okay to kind of, someone in authority should put their hand up and say, right, well, look, I'm making an executive decision here, and like we're bypassing this, like because this is too serious or whatever. So, I'd be interested to know what's going to happen. Like, it definitely isn't something that should just blow over, because, like, not naming names, but like these, like, these incidents happen time and time again, and sometimes teams are involved in repeat incidents, and it's it's not good enough, really. Like, do you know what I mean? They should be above that, and I just don't think it does anything for them as a team. I don't think it does anything for them as a county. And like, it's very easy to say, and I saw a lot of people online commenting like this, and probably particularly from Armagh, saying, well, if your man didn't want to get slapped, he shouldn't have done what he did. Like, but like, fair enough, that's one side of it. But like, you have to look after your own behavior. Like, you know what I mean? You control how you react to these things and how you conduct yourselves, and it's just not something. Look, everyone likes a bit of physicality, but like, it was just messy. Like, and it's just not something that you want to see again, you know, over the course of the rest of the season.
Just on Louth and the Leinster final, like, Meath were the better team to me for 45 minutes and were completely dominating midfield. Louth changed tack with their kickouts in the second half, got a good few shorter ones away, and it's amazing. They went from, you know, not being able to win a clean ball or get on most breaks to winning nearly every break. And like, I thought it was strange that Meath let Samuel Wright control the game. He didn't play inside, he played out, and he wasn't tagged enough for my liking from a Meath point of view. And like with Lennon as well, he was probably given too much kind of freedom at times as well. But the goals kept Louth in the game, like, and Lennon's goal before halftime gave them oxygen that they badly needed.
That was an unbelievable finish. Jesus, and he did so well, obviously, to get into position to take it, but the strike was unreal. He's a real top class player. But I definitely take your point on Mulroy, and you mentioned it there in the hurling segment of the show, that there are some guys that you don't allow to beat you. And sure, like, if you're going up against Louth, particularly when he's out the pitch, like, just you have to stop his influence. Like, he was dictating everything. Now, to be fair, he went through a spell in the third quarter where he missed something like 4 shots in a row. And you're going like, geez, this isn't going to work out for Louth at all. All of a sudden, he kicks one and he kicks another one. You can see the confidence starts to build. On the flip side, as you said, like, they were struggling to get primary possession. I think Jordan Morris came on and kicked the point in the 48th minute, and they only scored once more after that, and that was the goal, Matthew Costello's goal. So, like, that's obviously, I mean, the last 22 minutes of a final, if you want to score, if you're going to get one score, I mean, you're obviously asking for trouble. But I agree with you. I thought they were the better team for most of it, maybe the first 40 minutes or so. But look, overall, like, Mulroy's leadership was just, like, he really stepped up when it mattered, especially, as I said, having gone through adversity within the game itself. For the captain to come forward and kick the points that he did, it was just legendary stuff. You know, it's legendary status for him now in Louth, and it'll be interesting to see if they can kick on. Like, you know, we talk about the underage teams as well doing really well. This, like, a win that's this big, that's been so long coming, and so kind of, it's just a huge event for everyone in Louth. This could inspire a lot of, you know, young footballers in the county to stick at it, and, you know, to think, geez, maybe we can do that now, and we can be in Croke Park in a few years' time, and, you know, we can replicate that. So it's brilliant. I'm not writing Dublin off for the next 10. Like, people are on about, you know, this is, the provincials are kind of back now. I'd hold my fire on that kind of prediction, because, like, one swallow doesn't make a summer, and would it surprise any of us if Dublin won next year or the year after or the year after? Do you know what I mean? Like, I hope it doesn't happen, because it's great to see Louth win. I'd love to see Meath get their day. I'd love to see Kildare, Offaly, whoever is the next team along in Leinster, get their day in the sun the same way Louth does, because it was a beautiful day the last day for football in general. It was just it was wonderful to watch it.
The telly was shaking, like, it was reverberating, like, and
yeah.
Campbell carrying the Delaney Cup across the line where Joe Sheridan carried the ball across 15 years earlier. It was brilliant, in fairness, and the colour and the razzmatazz of it all, it was class. Just looking ahead to this weekend, Adam, obviously it's gas. The provincials are only just over, and we're straight into the All-Ireland series. Probably focus on 2 games anyway. Galway and Dublin's a massive game. It's going to be fascinating. Well, you know, they'll probably you'd probably fancy them both to get through, but that's not a formality in that kind of, as tough as that group is. What are you expecting from Dublin? What sort of reaction are you expecting? I think it's 5 weeks. It'll be 5 weeks since they were beaten in the Leinster Championship. Bit of a kick-out malfunction that day. The keeper was as much culpable as the receivers out the field. And now they're going up against basically probably the biggest middle kind of third of any team in the country. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Cluxton, who I presume is going to be playing, can find some answers against what is going to be like a mountain of men in front of him.
It's a huge challenge to go from as you said, the malfunction last month to go up against arguably the strongest, not just the midfield, but they have like 4 tall trees across the middle that can just like really do damage. So I think you're going to find out a lot about Dublin in this game, this current Dublin team. If this happened a few years ago, you'd be saying, well, look, they're going to come back like all guns blazing. They have that winning mentality. Not that it happened to them really. Do you know what I mean? Obviously not provincially, but they hardly ever lost the game when they were going really well. So, but the current team, I think it's safe to say, it's not that team anymore. There's a lot of personnel changes there. There's guys who haven't proven themselves yet. There's a sprinkling of the old crew, so they'll obviously be very important and very influential in these weeks, trying to bounce back from it. I just don't know, I noticed a real lack of quality and kind of control in that performance, like against Meath, that you just don't associate with Dublin teams. They're making really really kind of amateur errors in down the stretch that you'd never see Dublin make, touching the ball on the ground, kind of botching goal chances, turning the ball over under no pressure around the middle of the field. It was just really kind of, it didn't look good, and you'd worry going up against the Galway team, who are like going really well and are a good way down the track now, that they're definitely all-Ireland contenders, especially going up to Galway in Salt Hill. That's a tough ask, to bounce back like that from such a disappointing defeat a few weeks ago. But you know what? They might both get through, and you'd say probably themselves and Armagh will probably be the teams coming through that group. But I think what's being underplayed at the moment is the importance of actually finishing top of the group, and then if you can't finish top, to finish second. It's one thing saying that Dublin might finish third, but there's a huge difference between finishing third and finishing second even. It's the home preliminary quarter final. If you can finish first, and Galway will obviously be favourites probably at this stage, you have a week off after the last group game, you have a week off before the quarter final. You can sit back, you can kind of reset and go from there. I think it's a huge advantage to teams if they can manage to do it. Same with Kerry. I like, people are saying that this group is easy for Kerry. Well, they'll be favourites obviously, but I think it'd be really bad for Kerry if they don't top the group, And all it takes is one slip up. You're away to Roscommon are a decent team. You're away to Cork there. They nearly beat Kerry not so long ago. So I think it's really important that even if you are the favourites for the group, you can't take your eye off the ball, because, like I said, you need to take that top spot to set yourself up for a real good tilt at the All-Ireland. And the last 2 All-Ireland champions have been top seeds in their groups as well. And I don't think that's a massive coincidence either.
It catches up with you, and you get a week off, and you get away with it this week if you're going week to week, and you might get away with the week after, but it will eventually catch you at some stage. The other thing I meant to say to you is, I don't know if you saw the WhatsApp voice note that's flying around and the video that's flying around. We're talking about the hooter and how the rules have changed, and there's basically footage of a team, and it's near the end of a game. You can tell it's near the end of a game. It comes to one of their players, and he just boots the ball out over the terrace, and everyone starts going absolutely bananas with him. And then there's a voice note. It's the player in question. He thought they were up by a point, so he booted the ball out. And
oh, Jesus.
Turns out it was a draw anyway.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely chastised up and down by all of his teammates. But it's something that doing something premature like that, I'd say it's something that you'd be hounded about for quite a while, and I'm sure someone will come up with some sort of innovative nickname for you. But it's gas. There's different people are only adapting to the rules and finding their feet. So there's bound to be mistakes like that along the way.
Yeah, sure. Obviously this is way before the hooter, but I was playing a schools game with a senior colleges game down in Kerry at St. Brendan's, and we were up playing against Colosh and Skellige, who were a good team at the time. They would have Killian Young and these guys playing, and we played them in a semi-final. I think it was a Kerry college semi-final over in Clorglen, and it was a real nip and tuck game. It was back and forth. We'd been big rivals with them, whatever. And next thing anyway, there was a ball went in, and a good friend of mine was playing full back, and he gave away a foul. And I don't know, you remember a fella called Paddy Kern? He was like a prodigious footballer in Kerry.
Paddy Kern was the main man. He absolutely shut the lights out when he drew at Roscommon in the minor, but he didn't get a second day. Roscommon won well the next day.
Yeah, he was an unbelievable player at that age. Injuries just done for him in the end, but he was their main man. My friend was marking him, and he fouled him kind of the last play of the game. We're like, oh Jesus, like your man's not going to miss this, and sure enough, he put the free over. So we lost by a point, and we're inside the dressing room after the game, and our manager Gary McGrath was going like, "Well, Les, look, I know kind of the year's kind of over and over. The competition's over. Look, we'll have a good go at it again next year, whatever, fellas who are still around, and like, you know, whatever, fair play to you for the year and this kind of stuff." And I was sitting next to my buddy, and he turned to me and he goes, "What was the score?" And I was like, "I don't know, manager. Like, obviously we lost by a point." He thought we were after drawing the game still. So he gave away the foul, thinking like, "Oh, look, at least we got the replay out of it." Like, you know, we're after losing the game. Oh my God. Sick. Yeah.
That's something that'll follow you around for a while too.
Yeah.
Adam, great stuff. We'll be back again next week. Thanks a million to our great sponsors, Lotto Land, and we'll be back again next Thursday, 4:00, to digest plenty of action and to look forward to plenty of action coming up again. It's fairly wham bam. Thank you, ma'am. But we'll be back here again next week. Thanks a million, Adam. Good man.